Welcome, everybody, to the Pinstripe Chronicles podcast. It's Rob, Tats, and Donald. We are live, as we always are in the mornings here on Facebook, Roku, and YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, the first half is over. The Yankees had the best record in baseball. We are 13 games up in the American League East. We have like a 5-game lead for the best record. Things are looking pretty good right now for our Yankees, but today we're going to give some awards out, some thoughts on the first half in general. So let's start with Bobby Tats. Just give me your overall thoughts about the first half.
I think the overall feelings on the first half is that this has been a unexpected yet very exciting season so far. A lot of expected outcomes from players and a lot of unexpected outcomes. We knew what we were going to get with Hicks and Gallo with that duo, but we also weren't expecting the catching position to kind of shine as bright as it has with the pitching staff. I think that's been one of the keys to the success of this team in the first half. I think the defense is buttoned up. The offense has played a lot better. They've had their issue. They've had a couple of series where they weren't at the top of their game, but more often than not, they're putting up the runs. They're creating havoc on the bases, which is something that we haven't seen. So I think that's part of the unexpected part of why they are where they are.
Very good points, Donald.
They have been a revelation. I think it's been a revelation to watch them. Obviously, they kind of slowed down a little bit mid-July, but then they came back and they beat the Red Sox 27-3 over the last 2 games. So I'm wondering whether it might have been a slump. They are on a historic trajectory. They are definitely, along with the Astros, the cream of the crop in the East, in the American League, sorry. So that's it. So we'll wait and see what comes of it. But I do think that we need to get a little bit of work done in the trade deadline. I think a corner outfielder and a reliever and a starting pitcher would certainly, I think that could put us over the top. I mean, my thoughts are Aaron Judge has been incredible. And Giancarlo Stanton's in a really good year. And Garrett Cole's picked it up. And, there's some good things, really good things.
Really good things indeed. So let's just give out some numbers here. The Yankees are currently best in the majors in runs scored, home runs, and slugging percentage. So they're doing the things that they usually do. They score a lot of runs, they hit home runs, and slugging percentage goes a long way as well. But they're finding ways to score runs, different ways that we weren't doing a year ago, and that's a big difference in why we're winning as many games. We're second at on-base percentage, getting on base, and this year we're not killing those rallies like we were a year ago. And we're third in team ERA. So we're pitching well, we're hitting well. That's usually a recipe for success, and the Yankees have had plenty of that so far. But it's time for some awards, guys. So I want to know, what is your favorite moment of the first half of the season? If it takes you a while to think of one, go ahead, Tats. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with this past series with Boston as one of the ones that stands out, because where it looked like the Yankees were starting to revert back to old ways, they ended the first half in a manner where this is what we expected from them, from what we were seeing the first couple of months, where they weren't letting the games get away from them. They weren't letting Boone managed to win that series, and that was something that's been absent the last few years. So I think coming out of a slump the way that they did, just gave reassured us as the fans and the players that there's no team that can get the better of them. So I think that's been the moment for me. It's not a specific play. It's the way they're playing. They're not giving up on series. They're not taking games off. Even with the way that they're resting players, the players that they replace, they're putting in the lineup to give a guy a day off, is still finding a way to contribute. And the one player, it's to put it on one player is hard to do. On one play or one game, it's really just been overall.
Donald?
Um, I would. I mean, obviously, you can list the multitude of walk-offs that we had. There's been a bunch. Aaron Judge has had some amazing ones. But my favorite moment, I would actually just say, was be the first time I was able to get to the stadium this year. It's been 3 long years, so the stadium is a different beast now. I mean, this team has captured the imagination of the city. The place is packed. There's not a seat in the house, especially the night games. They just go wild, and the atmosphere is incredible. So I would say my favorite moment was, although we lost the game, of course they lost, but my favorite moment was my first game this year against the Astros. I think we lost 3-1, but such a fun atmosphere. It was absolutely wild. So that's my favorite moment of the year.
My favorite moment was the walk-off in the first game against Houston. That was playoff atmosphere, the intensity for Hicks to hit the home run to tie it, and then we get the walk-off with Judge. It felt like if that was October, Yankee Stadium might have crumbled and the way it was shaking. It was incredible. But I wish the series would have ended a little bit differently, but that moment in general just really stands out to me because I don't think I've screamed that loud for a regular season game. That was pretty incredible. But next question I have for you guys in terms of your awards, who is your biggest surprise player of the season?
Donald, you go first on that one.
Has to be Matty Mustache. Matt Carpenter. Probably should have been an all-star when you think about it. Matty Mustache is by far the biggest surprise.
No, I actually, I'm gonna go with Gleyber. I think moving him back to second base was the fix in his game that they needed to make, and he's taken advantage of the fact that he's back in a comfortable spot. He's been getting, he's getting better at bats. He's hitting a lot better. He's fielding a lot better. Where last year it looked like he was just lost, and we didn't know, what was going to happen as far as the infield alignment. And I think the fact that he took going back to second base as seamlessly as he did, I think that to me was a surprise. I thought the first half was going to be a lot more of a struggle for him. So the fact that he was able to just kind of just go right back to where he was when we were all screaming for him to be, the guy, I think he got right back into that.
It's good to see Gleyber be good again. Gleyber good. My surprise player of the year so far, Matty Mustache would be like the easiest choice because he's just been incredible. I got to go Trevino because I don't think I didn't see this coming. When we picked him up, I'm like, okay, we got to back up. Higgy's going to start. They're going to eventually Rortvet's going to get healthy, and it'll probably be Trevino that gets sent to AAA. But he took that ball and ran with it, and that man has not stopped running with it all the way to an all-star nod. He truly deserved it. A fantastic season so far. So Trevino, love what he's been doing. Defensively, he's just doing what he always does, but offensively, he's been better than we could have imagined. I mean, he's putting up very solid numbers for a guy that's not expected to hit. So Trevino definitely deserves a big nod. Love what he's doing. Love Trevi. I'm glad he's a Yankee, and he's very happy to be a Yankee, as well as Matt Carpenter, which leads me to the next question. Your biggest storyline of the first half?
I think it's got to be Nesta. It's got to be Nasty Nesta. The way he came out of the gate just pretty much became not only the talk of within us as Yankee fans, but of baseball, and how he was able to dominate lineups left and right the way he was, despite of who he was opposing. And for somebody who was supposed to be a middle of the rotation guy or back end of the rotation, along with Monty, I think Nestor just I mean, they were talking about him in the Cy Young race, once the season really got underway. And he's kind of taking, I think, and his last start was just what we expected to see from, what we were seeing from him. So I think Nest is it's got to be.
Donald.
The storyline of the season is the fine margins. That's what the difference has been in the win column this year. I think that was what Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone sought to address last year. It was the fine margins, the defense primarily, starting pitching, going longer, going stronger, and also adding a little bit more contact and athleticism. Because the power is always going to be there with Stan and Judge, etc. That's what it's really been about. It's been about the fine margins. Last year, the clubhouse chemistry was bad. The energy was bad. The defense was among the worst in the American League. We weren't stealing bases. We weren't running the bases well. The base running was some of the worst in the league. We were just getting ourselves thrown out at home basically on a daily basis. All these things culminated in an awful year. I say awful yet we won 92 games, but it was genuinely an awful year. It was awful to watch. This year is different. I think that Cashman calculated that we could get a bunch more W's by just fixing those issues. And the coaching staff's been better. We did well getting Rojas from the Mets. I think he's done a nice job in the coaching staff, coaching third base. Aaron Boone has been a much better manager. Matt Blake's been an excellent pitching coach. Not quite sure what our hitting coach has done yet, but we'll leave that aside. It's all about defense. Defense has been fantastic. You look at the infield defense is terrific. The outfield defense has been terrific for the most part. Aaron Judge has been terrific in center field. And Trevino has been incredible as a catcher. So, all those things, the fine margins, that's what's culminated in these big victories for me. Because a lot of these games have been tight, but we've always found a way of getting over them.
That is true. They have won a lot of close games. And that my answer is just Aaron Boone managing, because we talked about this before and you brought it up, but you feel like his negotiations to come back, he probably had to have said something along the lines of, let me manage. Because we know for a fact the first few years he was being micromanaged and it was really Cashman that was calling the shots. This year, this is Boone's team. And he was given a tough hand. We 5 infielders for 4 positions, rotate it, find a way. He found a way, and he's getting these guys playing time. And DJ's DJ, Glaber's been great. Rizzo's doing his thing. There's that $25 million disappointment at third, but for the most part, Aaron Boone has been dealt a tough hand, and the fact that we've come out of it with 64 wins to this point, I think Aaron Boone's managing. He's had a couple of clunkers, every manager does, when he's like, why did you bring in this guy? He should have done this, blah, blah, blah. But we've said that very few times this year, where at this point last year, we probably said to fire Boone about 30 times at this point last year. So maybe more. And there was about 6 Donald rants about Aaron Boone. So I think we're at a pretty,
at least
we're at a pretty good clip right now. So Aaron Boone and his managing has been a pretty big storyline. And right next to it, you got to put Carpenter. Like, just what he's been able to do. Incredible stuff. Now we got to kind of go turn the excitement down for a second, because who's been your biggest disappointment for this first half?
Ooh. It's got to be Hicks for me. I think Hicks is the biggest disappointment.
What? Over Joey Gallo or Josh Donaldson or Aroldis Chapman?
I thought that I really came into the season expecting Hicks I expected him to have like a resurgence this year, that he was fully healthy, and I was disappointed that we just got the same old no-show Hicks.
So I'll get to you in a second, Donald, but the last like month and a half of Aaron Hicks, and let's not forget he was dreadful for May. I'll say that. I wanted him off this team numerous times. But April, June, and now for pretty much all of July.
If he comes out of the All-Star break hitting the way that he did the past few weeks, I'll retract my statement. But I thought that he was going to have a much better overall first half.
I can't believe I'm defending Aaron Hicks right now. Donald, your answer.
Josh Donaldson has been the biggest disappointment for me. 25 million disappointment at third base. He's not been an upgrade over Urshela for me. Although Donaldson has played a very good third base, but considering the expectations going in, Donaldson has not met them. I think Urshela would have been just as good. And to be honest, he could just put IKF at third base in his natural position. Do you know what I mean? I hated the trade. I really did, because it opened up a spot for the Twins to get Correa. And generally, that whole trade's been almost disastrous in many ways. IKF's not been good. And Donaldson's been freaking horrible for the most part. He had like one stretch for about 2 weeks where he was really good, but during this month, but apart from that, he's not hit. He looks like his bat slowed down. He takes these huge cuts, and he's just a little bit slow. I think he's aging. That's the truth. When you inherit a $25 million third baseman who's 36, that's the kind of thing that happens. So it was a mistake to move on from Urshela, in my opinion. So Donaldson has been my biggest disappointment. I would have said Chapman, but I knew he sucked, so it didn't really make any difference with Chapman.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's Donaldson. I believe his F-WAR is like 1.2, and that's mostly because of his defense. He's not doing much else at the plate. He's very like league average, maybe even below at league average in OPS and weighted runs created plus. Nothing checks the boxes for Josh Donaldson. He's not hitting for average. He's getting on base okay. He's not slugging. He has like 1 or 2 home runs at Yankee Stadium, which is ridiculous to me. He should be murdering the ball there. He's really, you're not paying $25 million for defense, because you could have been paying $6 million for Urshela, who would have been giving you a little bit less defensively, but not much, and a much better bat, because Urshela's been a much better offensive player this year. So, yeah, I mean, the Gallo can be on that list, but he's not going to be here past the deadline, I don't think. So, if we're stuck with Donaldson, and he's the player that really needs to turn it around, if there's one player that has to get it going in the second half, it's him. Because he's going to be playing. You're not going to sit him on the bench, because then you have a really expensive bench player for 2 years or a year and a half. Let's not forget, we got him next year for the same amount of money on the luxury tax. So Josh Donaldson I'm not giving up on him. I won't give up on him because he's here. So I'm going to root for him. But we need him to stop being a mouthy person and just do his talking on the field, because we know he's got his teammates back. He's the first one out there. If there's ever a team brawl, he's going to be the first one out there throwing punches. We know that.
He loves that stuff.
But we need him to start swinging the bat and be the Donaldson. Last year, he was fine. If we were getting that this year, we'd probably have about 3-4 more wins or something like that.
Yeah, he made himself a distraction with the Anderson thing as well, remember?
Right. And, there's been he's left some bad taste, with some of these moves. But now we'll go a little more positive. Who is your team MVP for the first half? I don't want to say Judge. I'll kind of leave Judge off the list because I think
that's too easy.
Unanimous. He's obviously been the best player. So if
he's the league MVP,
right? If not Aaron Judge, who is your team MVP?
Does it have to be a player?
If you want to give a,
I want to say Matt Blake. I think what he's done with this pitching staff and working with the catching coach, the catcher coaches and everything, and the way that going to the 30 ERA in the league right now, the unexpected performances from Cortez and Montgomery, Even though Tylen's kind of fallen off a little bit, but he looked a little bit better his last outing. The way that they were pitching in the beginning to get us to where we are, I think Matt Blake has just done a phenomenal job. Look at what he's done with King and Holmes. So those are two other players that aren't really that we haven't been able to mention yet. So I think Matt Blake is the MVP of this team.
It's a really good answer, Donald.
MVP of this team. Well, if it's not Aaron Judge, then the next on the list would be Stanton. He's still clutch, even though he had a minor slump there for a while. He's still on a huge trajectory in terms of home runs. So he's also one of the key things he's done is he's been able to play the outfield, which has freed up the DH spot, which has allowed Matt Carpenter to play DH now pretty much every day, and it's allowed Gallo to not have to play, which is only a blessing for mankind. There's a bunch of factors, but Stan, if you look at his at bats, he is always quality with him. He's I think all of the hardest hit balls in the league are him by a margin. And in the clutch, he's a monster. He's a different monster altogether. So if it's not Judge, when it really is Judge, he's the league MVP, then I'd say Stanton.
Yeah, Giancarlo has been fantastic this year. I mean, my funny answer would be a mustache would be the team MVP because it's been dominating. Everyone who grows a mustache apparently does well. Lucas Litke grew a mustache and he's pitching better. Nestor's got the stash and he's been great. And of course, who could forget Matt Carpenter's beautiful stash? And the mustache rules right now. But no, the team MVP, I'm gonna go Clay Holmes because outside of Judge, to have that guy lock down the ninth inning that we haven't had since like David Robertson at the peak of his career. He broke Rivera's scoreless inning streak. Like that's something that I don't think we ever thought was going to happen.
That's something that really went under the radar.
Yeah, and he had a little hiccup,
really
there towards the end. He had a little hiccup. A couple of games he was rough, but he was automatic for pretty much the entire year. So Clay Holmes just locking down that ninth inning, getting the job in, and you could put Michael King right there with him. Those guys in the eighth and ninth inning have been so automatic. It's been really, really fun to watch and have that dominant back end of the bullpen once again. And I think it's only going to get better if we add another arm or if Loizaga can turn it around. I'm going to throw out some numbers here for some of our bigger hitters. Judge, 33 home runs, 70 ribbies, MVP chase. Stanton, 24 home runs, 61 ribbies. He's right behind him in RBIs, and it's kind of going unnoticed. That's why he's an all-star. People are kind of wondering, why is he an all-star? Well, there you go. He's killing the ball, and if it wasn't for Judge being on this historic pace, Stanton would be right there with them. Rizzo, 22 home runs, 57 RBIs. Again, he's hitting it for a low average, so people kind of overlook it, but he's been fantastic. Torres has 14 home runs, which is, I think, more than he had the last two combined, and 41 RBI, so he's fully back. Also, the average is like over 270. And then, of course, there's Matty Mustache with his 34 RBIs and 13 home runs and like 95 plate appearances, which he's out-hit Donaldson and Gallo combined almost, and like half the plate appearances. It's been nuts. So those are really our...
You're right. Gallo's had, like 180, 190 plate appearances? I think he's had over 190 plate appearances, and he's got less home runs and less RBIs than Matty Mustache.
Yeah, and the same for Donaldson. It's so if
Donaldson, that's scary.
Yeah, Matty Mustache has really been that good, and it's incredible because he's the story right now. Even though as good as the team has been and Judge has been, all people want to talk about right now is Matt Carpenter because he's coming through every day. Even when he's getting out, he was driving in runs the other day against Boston. It's just the guy finds a way to hit, and you love watching a feel-good story because he talked about it. We talked about it on the show all the time. He was about to give up. He was about to give up, and he rediscovered his swing.
You can thank Matt Holiday.
Yeah. Whose son just got taken number 1 overall. So congratulations.
It looks
there.
like he's been 8.
Yeah. MLB draft is interesting. I do like the guys the Yankees picked up in the first few rounds, though. We got another 6'7" outfielder. They're calling him the lefty judge, Spencer Jones out of Vanderbilt.
We'll
see. We'll see. We got a few minutes left here, so we'll get into it real quickly. Who is your top, almost had a tongue twister there, your top trade target for the New York Yankees come August 2nd?
How do you not go with Soto? I think the Yankees have to trade for. They got to figure out a way to trade for Soto. We have the prospects. We have enough people in the farm system that can entice a team to pull a trigger. It's the only the back end of that would be you still need to address some of the pitching. How much do you empty the tank for Soto and sacrifice not upgrading something else? But I think Soto has got to be the first person you talk to.
The reason I wouldn't say Soto is because I don't see them giving up the prospects for him. They have to address pitching as well, and there's no shot you get Soto and Castillo. So if you get Soto, you're going to have to get a Jose Quintana type starter, and I don't think he's going to move the needle for us much. So we might as well just stick with what we have or give that starting spot to Clark Schmidt or something, who'd probably be involved in a Soto trade anyway. So I would dump the farm for Soto, don't get me wrong, but I just don't see Cashman doing it. Not for one player. If he's going to give up multiple prospects, he's going to try to get 2 players. So he's going to go for an outfielder and a starter. And as good as Soto is, I think if we got, let's say, Ian Happ and then got Castillo, that's not a bad deadline by any means. That improves 2 major needs on this team. So I think Soto could be had next year as well, depending on what we give up at this deadline. So let's not forget that. He doesn't have to be traded this trade deadline.
So Soto turned down a 15-year, $440 million contract, right? So he's going to be wanting something in the region of that, right? Plus we have to pay Aaron Judge, which is $300 million. And we are not, and then we're already paying Stanton. We are not going to be paying that amount of $1 billion worth of contract, and for the outfield alone, that's just not happening. So that's just the reality. He's not going to do that because you also have to cover pitching as well. When it's in a couple of years, we're going to need to pay Nasty Nestor. We're going to need to address other contracts and the rest of the team that are maybe got arbitration coming up. There's a lot of areas that we'll need to cover if you want to have the whole team as is. So, or also want to have some money left over in free agency. So Soto isn't going to happen. I would love that to happen. It's not going to happen.
But just because you trade for him doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sign him right away. You're still going to have a couple of years to figure out what you're going to do.
What do you mean figure out what do you mean figure out what you're going to do? You're not going to let Soto go. If you trade for him and give up all your prospects, you're not going to then just let him go in a couple of years. You're going to have to re-sign him. So it's
I don't think there's any contract that Washington can put out that he's going to say yes to. He wants out.
I understand that, but he's still going to want something in the region of $440 million.
He's going to want more in AAV. He's going to want like 45.
AAV, yeah.
So if you're paying Judge 35 and let's say Soto 45, you still got to pay Stanton.
You have 2 years to worry about that.
Yeah, but you still got to have arbitration, which is going to pay him like $25 million. So you're going to have a very expensive outfielder, and we know the Yankees have this budget. I know that they can reset the luxury taxes. There's a whole thread that I saw on Twitter that explains all this. We got 30 seconds left, but they can do it. But we know the way they've operated. I'm sure we all would love them to do it in a perfect world. Yeah, get them. Have that outfield. Who cares? We're not paying it. But
my targets would be Castillo and Happ or Benintendi just before the 30 minutes.
We'll discuss this even further in more detail tomorrow.
Yeah. We got 10 seconds. So let's just say wear your pinstripes of pride and play hard. Go Yankees.